And a very warm welcome to SDIG Global Conference 2025. SDIG's Global Conference this year is focused around beyond boundaries, building bridges in education, wellness, and AI for transformative growth, amongst several other subjects as well. Your hosts for the next few hours will be Dr. Joseph Nwaye, the president and founder of SDIG, and Dr. Karen Walker, who has been an SDIG stalwart for quite some time. Dr. Walker is an IOP specialist, which stands for Industrial Organizational Psychology, which means she's very clever. It also means that she's extremely good at organizing things, which is very helpful for all of us here. It's a pleasure to have you joining us. We'll be going through the afternoon in a number of sessions, and we're crossing across all continents of the world with those attendees who are joining us from around the world, and also the panelists who are with us as well. So it is my very great pleasure to welcome all of you to SDIG Global Conference 2025 and to introduce your host, Dr. Joseph Nwaye, President and founder of the Systemic Diversity and Inclusion Group. Dr. Nwaye, welcome.
So we have a couple of great panelists today. Our professor or Dr. Namita Rajput, Cordelia Gaffar, and Simma Lieberman. And we'd like to welcome these three to our first session. And what I've asked each panel member to do is to just think about, about 2 to 3 minutes to give us a little deep dive into their current work and what they're passionate about and how that aligns to SDIG's quest, as we've mentioned, for peace, equity, and social justice in the global communities. So I'll go ahead and start with let's start with Cordelia Gaffar because she's up on our screen first. So go ahead, Cordelia, if you could let us into your world a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Karen. As Khalil Gibran, the author of The Prophet, says, the leader becomes great not because of his power, but because of his ability to empower others. My work is about decolonizing the workplace and honoring the most innate human quality of joy. I advocate for dismantling antiquated institutions and bonding humans by infusing joy through somatic breathwork and movement, as we have seen, right? And also by Dr. Butler's story, right? She is a Black woman who was relieved of her duties after working diligently. And we've seen over 300,000 Black women lose their positions. It reminds me of another great leader, Audre Lorde, who said, in our world, divide and conquer must become define and empower. So the current corporate model is built on an antiquated plantation model to source employees based on productivity and not respecting humanity. While my model acknowledges that humans willingly offer their expertise, choosing to align with corporate values. I encourage corporate teams and leadership to bond based on joy, both offering their expertise in alignment with personal and corporate goals, and corporate leadership to receive and accept that each employee is sovereign and highly educated, and they show up for the mission and vision of the corporation they choose to work for. So I believe that corporate spaces require a human reset based on human choice over historical practices. Humans contribute to the bottom line from a place of joy to share their expertise and elevation of profits and individual fulfillment. And when humans are allowed to show sovereignty, they contribute more and are willing to collaborate over compete. I believe in this time when we are seeing a dynamic missing link between plunging profits and attrition. It's very important to use the intellect of the body to empower the intellect of our minds. And so,
very, very powerful. Thank you so much, Cordelia. Can't wait to get into more about your model and, dive into that with our panel. I want to give another panel member an opportunity to introduce their passion and their work. And I think we can go to, let's go to Simma Lieberman next.
Hi. Hi, can you hear me all right? You can hear me fine. Right?
Yes,
Hi.
give us your a dive into your world for a few minutes.
I'm Simma Lieberman. I'm known as the inclusionist because I bring people together across differences to work better together and include everyone. For over 30 years, I've helped organizations create cultures where people from every background can do their best work and feel that they belong. Inclusion has always been important to me my whole life. And we're talking about wellness and diversity and inclusion and peace. A little bit about my background is that I have a master's degree in holistic health education, and I started out teaching wellness, biofeedback, and stress management, which taught me how emotional, physical, and social health are connected. And that foundation guides me in my work in diversity, equity, and inclusion because inclusion is wellness. And through my consulting facilitation, and I have a podcast, Everyday Conversations on Race, I help people connect across race, culture, and every difference. And that aligns with SDIG's mission for peace, equity, and social justice, because peace starts with how we treat each other every day. I'm the author of 3 books on diversity and inclusion and 1 book on stress and resilience. And my mission, the mission of my podcast and the mission of my work is to stop hate, eliminate fear of differences, and spread global love and justice across the globe. And I am in Berkeley, California, and I've been in this field for over 35 years as in professionally. And before that, my work was centered on dialogue. And my overall process now is seeing each other fully, real conversations, real results. And come and see me anytime.
Yeah, I love that, Simma. Thank you so much. Can't wait to dive into more of your work and that exceptional podcast you're running as well. Thank you so much. And our last panel member for this session is Dr. or Professor Namita Rajput, and we'd love to hear from you and kind of where your work is diving into currently. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
So, some journeys are not chosen, they are whispered into your soul by suffering you could not turn away from. So, my greetings to everyone. I'm Professor Namita Rajput from University of Delhi. And while I wear many titles, professor, researcher, mentor, what truly defines me is a promise that was born from a heartbreak. So years ago, I lost a dear friend, a woman of radiance with professional brilliance and grace. She faced harassment at her workplace, and the system failed her, not only through her injustice, but through the indifference. She did not just collapse under the cruelty. She, was withered under the silence. And when her voice was finally done, I realized that the silence can kill far more quietly than the violence ever could. So that moment split me open. But from the fracture, the purpose flowed. And I decided that if I world would not protect its women, I would dedicate my life to building the systems that could. So that promise became the axis around which my life now turns. My work began in a very narrow lanes of Delhi slums cluster areas among the young girls whose dreams were bigger than the circumstances. And we had no classrooms, no desk, no chalk, no concrete, no courage. One of them, called Meena, once said, "If I learn to read, maybe I can choose my own life." So that line became my scripture. And I actually, that taught me the education is not about empowerment. It is the empowerment. It is the first step from invisibility to, independence. So over the years, I've authored many books, many research papers, but most importantly, I have written an ISBN that are written in the courage of survivors, the laughter of the young girls, and the quiet dignity of those who finally felt safe enough to speak. As an empaneled trainer of the She Box, which is an initiative of Ministry of Women and Child Development, and an expert under the University Grant Commission portal, I have seen that what happens when the laws are no longer lifeless, when they begin to breathe compassion. I have trained more than 500 institutes, women, girls, not in compliance, but in conscious, reminding the organizations that every workplace policy must have a heartbeat. And when I started my, all these work, I met Dr. Joseph, and my path crossed with SDIG, the Systemic Diversity and Inclusion Group, founded by Dr. Joseph Noyne. Until then, my work had been deep rooted in Indian soil, but SDIG gave it wings that could touch the world. And SDIG became the global mirror that reflected everything I stood for: equity, empathy, empowerment. I allowed my leadership theories, that is, Bhag theory of leadership, balance, harmony, action, growth, and 3 E's of motivation: empower, engage, elevate, to reach the audience across culture, context, and continents. So it was because of SDIG that I did it. And through SDIG, I realized that inclusion is not a geography, it's humanity. Technology can learn compassion, and the leadership can still learn stillness. So that diversity isn't a strategy, it's a soul practice. So today, I no longer see myself as a professor of commerce. I see myself as a teacher of courage, a consortium of healing, and lifelong study of inclusion. So, and if my friend could see me now, I could tell her, your silence was not the end of your story, it was the beginning of mine. So, because though every survivor I have trained, every student I have guided, and every platform like SDIG, she lives on not as a tragedy, but as a transformation. So that's what SDIG truly means for me: a
Wow.
movement where pain becomes progress, policy becomes purpose, and the people becomes possibility. Thank you so much for giving me
Thank
an
you.
opportunity.
Thank you so much. We get quite a bit of reactions on that. It's a very touching story, and we just loved being able to partner with you. As you can tell, we
Thank you.
have some amazing women on this panel this morning or evening, wherever you are, and we're just honored to be able to collaborate with people across the world. So it really is a global effort that Dr. Joseph has put in place here. I want to jump into some of our questions we have for the panel. And again, that's a reminder, if you have questions or if you want more information from one of the panel members, please use the Q&A chat just so that we're not distracting those partaking in the conference itself. So first, I'd like to open up to the panel members to help our audience kind of understand, like, what does mental wellness mean, and why does it matter in the workplace? Why is that even important where we work? Anybody want to jump on that one?
I would say mental wellness is the ability to show up completely authentically in the workplace, bring your whole self to work, and also show up as the expert that you're there to contribute to the organization for.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to touch on that, what that means for the workplace? Go ahead, Simma. You're muted.
To me, when I
Okay.
think about mental wellness, we can't separate it from inclusion, because when people don't feel included, they don't have mental wellness. And true wellness is not just about fitness programs or meditation apps, which are very important, but it is about how people feel in the workplace. Do they feel seen? Do they feel respected? Do they feel psychologically safe? When I used to teach biofeedback, it was all about understanding your body's response to stress. So I brought that into my 30 years of working, but I realized when I was teaching wellness, we needed more inclusion, and you can't separate. You need to, in order to feel mentally well, you have to feel included. You have to feel that you belong in an organization, that your contributions are valued, and that people see you as a whole person. Because I know there have been times when I haven't felt included, and I was working out, I was taking stress management, teaching stress management, but when I didn't feel included, I didn't feel psychologically safe, and when I didn't feel psychologically safe, I didn't want to contribute. So you can't separate inclusion from mental wellness in organizations. You can pretend that you do, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, thank you for that. I want to kind of dovetail off of that for the group, and just, in thinking of what you just brought up of inclusivity. I mean, how can leaders help people feel that they're safe, respected, and included in work? Since you brought up the importance of that in wellness.
Well, leaders set the tone.
Sure.
So leaders set the tone. Leaders need to be able to listen without being defensive. And so often you have leaders in an organization who are so busy trying to lead and trying to, I guess, mark their territory, but they forget about they forget about the people in their organization. So you have to be able to create a sense of safety for people to work well together. So it's leaders set the tone. If you have a leader that is dictatorial, if you have a leader that doesn't recognize their shortcomings, if you have a leader that doesn't ask for help, then that's not going to be a well organization. And if you have a leader that only develops relationships with people who are just like them, that is an unwell organization, and that organization is going to miss out on a lot of genius that other people bring to the organization.
I think it's, just to piggyback off of that, I think it's pretty simple. Like I said, a lot of my work is bringing the intellect of the body. So presencing that humans exist, like starting meetings out with something connecting, like let's start with breath work, or let's start with what is most present for what's a most present concern. That's, to Simma's point, showing care and concern and actually valuing what people think and what people are feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give Professor
Yeah,
Rajput
can I
an
add here?
opportunity. Yes, please.
Yeah. So your question was like, how can the leaders help people feel safe, respected, and included at workplace? So
Yes.
my take on this is that a leader's real power isn't the authority, it is the assurance. So people don't feel safe because the rules exist. They feel safe because someone cares enough to listen. So in my early years, leading teams, I realized that silence in the workplace does not mean peace. It means fear. So I began practicing what I call leadership by listening. So instead of beginning the meetings with the data, I begin with the dialogue. I learned that when the people are heard, they work not for the approvals, but for belongings. So at our university, this approach transformed the cultures, the small acts of calling someone by name, recognizing their efforts, pausing, to ask, how are you really, it builds some invisible safety nets for them. So through SDIG also, I've seen this philosophy flourish globally. And Dr. Joseph reminds us that people and inclusion starts with the presence, and the true leaders, they don't stand above the teams. They stand among them and turning power into partnerships. So that was my
Oh,
take.
yeah, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Simma. Do you
Oh,
have
I just want
a
to
piece
add,
on that?
I just want to add something else, that you have to, that it's really important for leaders make it safe for people to speak up. So many organizations, people are afraid. They're afraid to speak up, or they'll wait for the leader to talk, and then afterwards they talk about why they agree with the leader, so that they could so that the leader will favor them, and that's not very helpful. And the leader is the one who's been setting that tone. When you have
Yeah,
that in the organization, people are more creative and engaged, and that's what organizations want.
Yeah, thank you. I love how each of you kind of were talking about the individual perspectives within an organization and how you're almost like leading people where they're at, but the aspect of a leader having to listen and create that dialogue. I'm curious with this group and, our conference kind of hitting on a lot of AI and different technologies. What are some ways that technology can actually support people that maybe have different abilities in the organization or they come from different backgrounds? How can technology help with any of that?
As much as I love to talk about the human, bringing their feelings to work and everything, it's when you have people that have learning differences or they have ability differences, right? There's all kinds of bias that exist, but there are technologies, including AI, that can level the playing field and make it available for people with different abilities to be heard and valued and respected. So I know there's a lot of conversation against AI, but I really think it's an opportunity to use it to humanize the workplace.
Well,
I'm
thank you for
curious what
that.
Professor Namita thinks about that.
Yeah. Your thoughts?
Yeah, can I add here?
Yes, please.
Basically, when you talk about technology, it becomes inclusive when it learns to feel before it functions. So I've seen how a simple smartphone can actually turn isolation into an opportunity. You talk about a girl in Delhi slums where I've been working and doing a lot of things for them. Accessing education online or a visually impaired student reading through AI tools. That's not just innovation. That's the dignity delivered digitally. So, but the true progress isn't about a faster system, it's about the fairer system. And at SDIG, we use Neuro-AI to understand the emotions, detect the biasness, and design the technology that connects rather than divides it. So it's about the connection, not dividing. And technology should never replace empathy, it should extend it. So that's very important.
Oh, I love that. Not replacing it, but as an extension. Simma, go ahead.
Well, I think that there's different ways of using technology. There's small ways that have actually big impact, like closed captioning. I facilitated an all-day program recently, and there were people who had hearing issues and also sight issues. But what really impressed me was that they had closed captioning. That was one of the first times I've done an all-day program like that, where they had closed captioning, where people were able to see what was actually on the screen, and that for people who had sight issues, they were able to. I'm not even quite sure what technology they used, but they used technology that described what I looked like, what was going on in the room. So people felt more included, like they were part of they were part of the whole event. The other thing is that there are certain ways that technology can help. When we look at Neuro-AI, that Neuro-AI and I'm not a technologist. I'm not a technologist. I'm a user of technology, and sometimes it's barely. But AI can be used, for example, like in taking like the pulse of organizations to see whose ideas are consistently overlooked, who gets interrupted most often, and this information is very valuable. But of course, with every AI or every technology, it goes back to the leaders, because the leaders have to interpret those insights. They have to be curious and not get defensive. So if it points out, well, this person doesn't get heard, this person doesn't get listened to, that the leader doesn't go, well, I just didn't see them, or they weren't raising their hand high enough to make an excuse. But for leaders to see that as an insight, be curious, and then make change. But one last thing, that in order for AI to really work, it has to be fed the information with minus bias and minus a conservative, because I've seen it with in AI, because where people feed very exclusive ideology, and AI just continues that. So it's that AI is not biased. I mean, AI does not lack bias. It can be biased, but it's really up to us what we feed into AI. And like I said, I'm not a technologist, but I use my smartphone, and sometimes I have to use technology.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I like the point you brought up about some of the technology you've seen. I've also seen that in some other virtual venues where the speakers will kind of describe themselves first. So for those that aren't able to see, they can get the same ambiance, that, I don't know, I have a background where I'm in the clouds and the trees. For those of you who can see that. But that can help also set a tone for the room, virtually speaking. So Professor Rajput, did you have anything else on that? You're on mute. Sorry. I can't hear you.
Can you just repeat the question? There was a connection
Sure.
error.
Yeah. No, I was just tying everything in on, what are the ways that technology can really support different backgrounds, people from different backgrounds.
Yeah, of course. As my answer was there, that technology can blend everything and make the workplaces more inclusive by giving some blind reading softwares and some AI tools for the people with special abilities, the neuro people, and all that. So basically, when you talk about the AI tools and the technology, it is basically that we have to balance the data driven performance and the human centric wellness. So the numbers can actually measures the productivity but not the peace. So in my experience, the best results come when the performance reviews include a pause of how are you really, and at SDIG we do this with compassion, so we can use the data, understand the pressure, not increase it, because we are always talking about pressure, pressure, and pressure. But what I feel is that all these graphs should be just used to release the pressures. Every graph is a heartbeat. So the true leader, when you talk about the leadership and AI and all these things packed up together, it's the matrix meets mindfulness. So when the success is not just about what we achieve, but how the humans we remain while achieving it. Because if we become inhuman, or if we start taking pressures and not releasing it actually, then there is a problem. So a real balance is required everywhere when you talk about the leadership, the data driven, because all these things are somehow creating a lot of pressure on the youngsters. And I daily talk to Gen Z. So they are, they are losing their mindfulness. So what I feel is that it should be used mindfully, strategically, as an enabler, not as a master. So we have to, as a leader, we have to strive the organization in such a way that it is remaining as an enabler, not becoming a master. Otherwise, the people are losing their comprehension, the way they think, the comprehension, the overall contemplation of the thoughts what we have for the Gen Z. What I feel truly and deeply is that it is the leadership which can correct all these things and make the world a better place, more inclusive place, just by strategizing everything at the right time and for the right kind of people.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, that brings us kind of to our next topic here on, the importance, right, of, you mentioned the data-driven performance metrics, and organizations are really into AI for what that can bring to them, right, to be able to measure everything in the organization. But, it is important to consider that balancing it with the human-centered wellness strategies that we've talked about today, and in the sense of what you're saying with the generation now, they go to Amazon first, or Google to get their questions answered, instead of some critical thinking and actually research diving. So what are some ways that leaders can work on this kind of human-centered wellness in their organizations now?
Well, they have to get to know the people in their organization. Too often, I see, and this still happens. It happened 30 years ago, and I still see it happening now, where you have leaders who still keep themselves locked away. Even if they're present, they're still locked away. And I think that that's really important. They have to get to know their people, but they also have to work on themselves, have to work on their own bias too, so that they see people as whole people. And not because so much I'm hearing so much talk about, well, we want to just hire people based on merit. We want to give them these tests. We want to hire them based on merit. But what does that even mean? Because if a leader is biased, then, and many are, if you, for instance, I'm going to use the United States as an example. If you think that white people have all the intelligence, even though you have a white person who doesn't have a degree, doesn't have any experience, but you think they have all the intelligence, that's how you've been raised, that's what you think, that when you're talking to somebody, a person of color, particularly like in this country, a Black person who has all the degrees, all the experience, but in your mind, you still think that white person is more qualified because you think white people are smarter. It doesn't matter how many degrees, doesn't matter how much technology somebody knows, because in your mind, you still think that white person, and I'm not disparaging, it's not to disparage white people, it's just what's happening, is you still think that that white person is smarter, so you're going to say, yeah, that person has more merit. And with good AI tools, if you listen to the tools, and then you actually have a more objective view of who really is, what's the word, meritorious or meritus, whatever it is, but who has I always make up words. So, and you have to make sure that whatever you're doing with AI technology, it's not just replicating your bias. You have to be open. You really have to be open. And I've seen that happen. I've worked with organizations where in the beginning, people weren't that open. And then when I said, if you do this, if you do that, here's what inclusion is, they go, wow, I never thought about it that way. Part of our
Thank you. No, thank you. That's great. Cordelia, I see you trying to jump in. I will let you.
Yeah, what people miss, which is the name of my podcast, is that all of these antiquated ways of viewing employees and leadership have caused workplace trauma, right? I mean, even the leaders have it. And so there's no denying that there has to be a more therapeutic approach. And there have been small systemic reviews concluding that somatic movement during meetings, team meetings, has improved the way people relate to each other. It's calmed the nervous system of each individual.
Let me interrupt you on that. Can you explain what that movement is? Just an example for those that aren't in this field.
Absolutely. So somatic movement is dealing with the body, and specifically to calm down the limbic system, which helps with emotional regulation, and the nervous system, where people are able to express themselves freely. Some of the movements are very simple, right? Most of the time we're like, if we look in the little quadrants, the little screens, each one of us has our shoulders pretty much up to our ears. But with a simple breath, breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, your shoulders drop, and it changes the chemistry in the brain and allows the right and the left brain to communicate so that people can fully show up authentically and work. Another thing is, even with the breath, you can release the stress of maybe a heated discussion during meetings by dropping the shoulders and standing rather than sitting, so that you can move the hips, because when you move your hips, your jaw opens again, allowing people to fully and freely express themselves.
Can I
thank you.
piggyback on
Yes.
that for a second?
Yes.
I want to testify. I want to testify that what Cordelia is saying is actually works, because I'm from the Bronx in New York in the United States. Who don't know what I'm talking about. I come from an area where people were very skeptical. You know, they thought eating brown rice was nuts, right? And so I was one of those people in organizations where they would say, everybody take a breath. And I was one of those people that you hate, because I was one of those people who just resisted, and I would be mumbling under my breath, and I'd be like pretending, until when I went to school to get my master's degree in holistic health, because my idea was just nutrition. And I said, no, I'm not going to do all that breathing stuff. And the first night they had us do all that breathing. They talk about somatic healing, and it worked. It changed me. I became so much more open. So I love, Cordelia, I love what you're doing. Thank you so much. You are changing lives and changing organizations.
Thank you for that. That's
Yeah, I
amazing.
have something to add, Karan, here.
Yes, go ahead.
Like, because I am a lead auditor for quality standards, I go for accreditation. So we have certain qualitative metrics, which runs around this circle only. Like, for example, I have seen in few organizations of higher education institutes in India that they have very special circle of healing leadership, which transform the hierarchical system into the healing circles, where every leader spends 1 hour a week a dialogue with the team members about their emotional well-being, not their performance. This is number one. Number two is that they have empathy audits, like we have social audits, we have financial audits. So they have they are also conducting some empathy audits, which is like about 6 months, after 6 months, we're measuring how people feel in their environment. And the outcome is that the empathy becomes quantifiable and the emotional climates are monitored very effectively. And then they have some she-box sensitization labs, some neuro-empathy interface. And they have also, I've seen in a few organizations that they have 3 E's of wellness model: empower, engage, and elevate, where give people voices, where choices in wellness and design is there, co-create peer support ecosystem is there. And then a very important thing, what I've observed is that they have a silent hour policy, in which there's once in a week, there's no meeting, no email, no reflection, nothing is done. That's just, just a silent hour. And also KPI is, if you talk about KPI, kindness is one of the KPI. So that's wonderful act of compassion. I have observed, I cannot name the college because we are under the oath of not disclosing it. But yes, kindness as KPI was a wow feature, and which makes the acts of compassion as a part of the annual performance reviews. So that was I wanted to share as an auditor. That was
That's
wonderful.
amazing.
I just want to say, we have to give props to Professor Namita, because I have to go back and listen to everything that you said. I'm going to listen to the recording. But I think it's important to also note that so much of what's happening when we talk about breath work and breathing and focus and being still a lot of it comes from India, things that we've learned from people in India. I'm not saying everybody in India sits around and meditates all day. When I was in India, it wasn't like that. But that's where that thinking comes from. And that's a whole different technology, because I think what Cordelia is talking about, what Professor Namita is talking about, that's also technology.
It is. The body, the technology of the body is a superior technology, and it's often overlooked. I'm currently here in Bali, where kindness definitely is a barometer. I love how there's so many mopeds and trucks and cars and not one single accident, because people actually are kind and they, take a moment. So the breath work and the somatic movement I use, although is not from India, it is from the Taoist and the Tibetan Buddhist perspective, but they are definitely complementary to spiritual practices that I have witnessed in India as well. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, no, thank you for all of that and the examples. I think, even myself, after 21 years in the Marine Corps and retired, and when I was first talked to about mindfulness, I was like, okay, that's a bunch of, I don't know that can help me. But when you actually, Simma, like you said, do it, and you're actually applying some of these practices and principles, it really can change your overall just aspect and viewpoint on daily life, which it helps you overall in your relationships, your work, family, everything. So I love those examples each of you gave. I want to look closer into the intersectionality that we've talked about so far in the conference when we are speaking about people in general, like mentally, physically, and just like socially. How can organizations use kind of their wellness programs to reflect this intersectionality we've been talking about?
So the technology that I've created and I use with the organizations I work with is called joy bonding. And
Oh, love that.
right? And instead of trauma bonding, because most often, right, humans, they come to work and they complain, right? So this is an opportunity to share what you are excited about today, like what are you grateful for today? Not to be cliche, but there is something to be grateful for every single day, right? Definitely, certainly as we age, we're grateful for our joints working, yes? So at the minimum, I got out of bed today and I can walk. um, and just speaking from an elevated state of the human existence, right? And acknowledging that our bodies really require three main things, right? Movement, breath, and then food, right? Because we don't want to diminish the nutrition, of course, Simma, but you realize that there are better things, right? You can eat well and exercise and still be stressed out. But if you're breathing, right, and you're moving intentionally for the purpose of connecting and creating synergy, which you can do with joy bonding, during each meeting, and making that a way of being, a practice of an organization, right? Each person is a leader to themselves. So if you have a practice and a way of being that is nurturing to oneself, you can't help but to radiate that when you come to work. And so that's the premise of joy bonding, and definitely a way that leaders can activate that and make that the way of being and practice of the organization.
Love that joy bonding. I haven't heard of that. So
I
that
know I
sounds
created it.
yeah, thank you for creating it. That's amazing. Yes. So I do want to remind everybody, as we're going, there's great panelists that have join our conference, and please, do reach out to them. On your registration links, you have everybody's kind of contact information. We realize that, change happens like through our collaboration. So SDIG really supports that connection, that you reach out to each other. Please, network with each other and stay in touch so we can hear about joy bonding and some other great things that people are working on. So Simma or Professor Rajput, you have anything on this?
Yeah, I was going to say that I love the word bonding. And what I'm hearing from Professor Namita and from Cordelia both, goes along with SDIG, is the importance of bonding and making connections, and that we use that technology needs to be used to do that. And if we look at it even on a global level, when people feel connected, when people feel that they have something in common with somebody, they can't hate each other. It's hard to kill somebody that you've had a human interaction with. It's easier to kill somebody, and I'm saying this in a world, looking at what's going on in the world, that I've been in the Palestinian Jewish dialogue group for over 30 years, and one of our sayings is that an enemy is someone whose story you've not yet heard. And what I'm hearing from the other panelists, and also myself, because this is what I believe, that when you are able to find commonality and find connection, sometimes the connection is even just in the silence or in the bonding. We see each other as more as full human beings. And when that happens, we're not afraid to share our ideas. We're not afraid to take other people's ideas, and we're not afraid to work together. Somebody becomes more than just like those people or that department. Oh, those people in that department. Nah, they're all a bunch of whatever. But when we see people as human beings and we use the technology to do that, life is great for, that's when workplaces are places where people want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Professor Rajput, did you have something? Oh, we can't hear you. You're still muted. We can't hear you.
See,
You're muted. Thank
when
you.
you talk about bonding and connection, as Simma and Cordelia were mentioning, so bonding and connection are unseen architects of every thriving institution, what I also feel, and they transform a group of individuals into a living ecosystem, one that breathes, trusts, listens deeply, and moves with a shared purpose. So I also wanted to, share this, that leadership isn't in the truest form is not about direction, but about the alignment, aligning the heart, mind, and the missions together.
Alignment of those. That's powerful. Yeah, each of you is just very enlightening and appreciate that. So I want to move towards one of our last questions here is, how can we ensure that the AI kind of driven wellness platforms we've kind of talked about using, that we're not reinforcing kind of the cultural or socioeconomic biases that are out there? How can we be aware of that in our work?
You train it. Just like, the more you talk to AI, it's amazing. It'll spit out whatever you teach it, because AI is based on water, and it's the element that basically is the foundational component of humans, right? We're about 70% water. So we have the ability to train it. We don't have to end up creating the Terminator, you understand? Because that's that's pretty much what people are like, the whole gloom and doom. Oh my gosh, AI is taking over. Right. If you allow it, you can train
So
it.
I also would like to, give the same thoughts as Cordelia was mentioning, that artificial intelligence learns from what we feed. And when that flood is incomplete, the intelligence becomes partial. So machine learning systems are not born biased, they inherit our blind spots. So what I feel closely is that our data sets should reflect a privilege, not a poverty, and the urban voices, but not the rural realities. AI will faithfully reproduce those imbalances, amplifying inequality instead of elevating it. So that's what AI must be designed with conscious, not convenience. So in order to get the best results, so we have to train. Machine learning should be proper, and the data should, be given. Big data should be given so that the machine learning not only predicts the pattern, it should protect people also.
I
Oh,
love
I love
that. And
that.
yeah, I'm going to
Oh,
jump in here because I feel like, you know, for a lot of people, AI is kind of scary, and it's like, oh, I need to kind of stay away from that because it's biased, or you know, it has these issues.
So
But
that's
I
because
love,
of the partial feeding that the machine learning is not proper.
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
love that each of you are
Yeah.
saying like, hey, you know what? You've got to actually train it. You got to do some work in there to make sure, you know, your voice is heard. So I really appreciate that. And I didn't mean to step on you, Simma. Go ahead.
No, not at all. This panel is so much cooler than I even thought it would be. But I should know
Good.
that Dr. Joseph only gets cool people. I mean, I feel like I'm included in that too. So,
Of
but
course.
I want to say that AI, it could reinforce, and this is sort of along with what the other two panels have said, that AI can reinforce bias if it's trained with limited data. But another piece, or not but, and, you know, you ever say, don't say but, say and, that it's important to include diverse teams in building it and testing it, and to be able to ensure transparency, and also keeping human empathy central to decision making. Because it's like, we've seen, I'm addicted to scrolling like many other people. And so we've seen, like, on a lot of the reels where people use AI, and it's just reinforcing bias. It's reinforcing cruelty. It's reinforcing hatred. I'm just speaking for here in the United States. I can't speak for any other country. But on the other hand, we've also seen how AI can reinforce inclusion, can reinforce diversity, and can actually help create connection and build empathy. And that's the side that we want to be on. And that goes along with Joseph's act, that goes along with SDIG, which is why I think we're all here with you.
And you know, with that, you have to be cautious, right? Because it goes back to the points we were all making in the beginning. You can have a diverse team, right? But that's muted. You understand what I'm saying? So you can have people with learning differences that look different out, you know, different optics, but they'll spit out the same biases because they don't feel like they can be authentic, like it won't be received, right? So this is a very, it happens, right? We've seen it plenty of times. So again, I think it does also go back to the psychological, creating an environment of psychological safety so that the technology teams that are creating the machine learning are not perpetuating the biases, because it's not always the colonizers, right? And then the imperialists who are the problems, right, Namita? Because sometimes it's us who can be our own best enemies.
Yeah, because I think I'm always right, of course, but the reality is, I would not just want my viewpoint. I wouldn't want to be the sole viewpoint in AI because I think I'm cool or I'm unbiased. But it's very important to have other people, because we only know our viewpoint. We only know how we think. But it's important for AI to have how a lot of people think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Karan, I would like to add a closing statement here that the real goal of machine learning, as we are talking about it, is not to make the machines think like humans. It is to help humans think more humanly.
Yeah, I like
Yes.
that. I like that.
That's
So
definitely,
I
yeah.
was going to ask each of you, you know, because you've touched on so many different aspects, but if you could just kind of think, you know, what you say to our leaders out there who are maybe hesitant to try some of these AI techniques, or even wondering how do they become more inclusive, right? You know, because fear does restrict people's actions quite a bit. So just if each one of you just want to share, you know, what would you say to a leader that's maybe pretty hesitant or nervous about trying to do that?
Be an innovator, you know, be brave. That's part of leading. And just, you know, show up differently. Just decide one, you know, if there's something that's not working, you have a choice. You can keep banging your head, right? Or you can do alternate nostril breathing. And you know what I'm saying? It's like you can keep hitting this, but if you do alternate nostril breathing, just so I am making a joke and I'm not, it does actually change the chemistry in the brain and calm down the nervous system and make it easier to be brave. So that's one thing I would offer.
Thank you, Cordelia.
I would say, I'd say get with the program. Do you want to oh, actually, yeah, an AI program too. I'd say get with the program. Do you want to be successful? Do you want your organization to be successful? Or do you want to just have people sitting there, you're paying them to do nothing because you are not being inclusive and you're not using technology to be able to get people's brilliance? And that's what I would say. Do you want people to do their best work? Because I don't know anybody who does their best work when they feel excluded. I don't know anybody who does their best work when their talents and what they bring to the organization are not seen or not heard or not used. And if you use technology in the right way, you'll be able to change your organization, because who wants to work somewhere where they're not able to do their best work? And I don't want to lead people where people aren't doing their best work, because that's going to make me look bad too. I said, you want to make yourself look good, then, then start learning.
Oh, I love that. Love that.
Yeah,
And also
here
with the
also, yeah. Can I
Sorry.
add something here?
Sure.
Yeah. So we have nowadays emotional AI dashboards, like, we have cognitive, receptivity. So what they do is they are very, very good tools in analyzing the tone, the empathy and the listening patterns in the conversations in the meetings. So it will really help the leaders understand how their words feel, not just how they sound. So it actually turns the feedback into a self-awareness thing, and the leaders learn to communicate with more passion and emotional intelligence. So, we have those patterns now present, those AI tools also present, which understands these patterns very well. So it helps in having more awareness to the leader itself, that how he has to speak, how he has to do his conduct, to understand the people in a compassionate way and more emotional, intelligent way. We have bias detection algorithms also, everyday inclusion becomes intentional then.
Wow, that puts
Wow.
a whole different level on leading, I think, because what you're describing is almost like you can
Because self-awareness is very
replay.
important.
Yeah, you can
Self-awareness is very
replay
important. Yeah,
the
yeah,
tone
yeah,
of the
yeah.
meeting and see like, hey, where did I go wrong there? Almost like, an
Yes, that's
athlete would
important
be able
actually.
to review.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's important.
Cordelia, I think you got cut off earlier. Did you have another comment on that?
The only thing I would add is I love what Professor Namita said, because I like to use the word intimacy intelligence, because when you can be compassionate and kind with people, then you're making a more intimate connection with your team and with other humans. And so it's really just an opportunity to be human again at work, and stop perpetuating that way of being, of trauma bonding at work, and not showing up fully, right? Because that's what Simma keeps saying, that you can't show up fully if you're not seen, heard, and valued. And that's what happens when we're basically oppressed. And that's the world we live in currently.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank each one of our panel members, and I want to give just a couple minutes here to possible questions we might have from our audience. And so I do see there is one hand up. I'm trying to get the name to come up for me. So Isabel Dragon, I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly, but you have your hand raised. Did you have a question for our panel?
Hi, Isabel. This is the studio in London. Your microphone is now enabled, so just unmute your microphone and please go ahead and ask a question from Dr. Walker.
I actually wasn't, I didn't have a question that I wanted to ask. I was just adding on a little bit to what the panel was saying, to what the doctor was saying that really resonated. And
Sure.
we're talking about the leadership, and I always say, Cordelia was talking about the empathy, and I feel that leadership has completely changed in the world that we're in right now, right? Before we wanted powerful leaders, but now we need empathetic leaders. So I'm a firm believer that in order to be a leader, you have to be a leader in your own life first. What is your vision? What is your conviction? What is your belief? Because people right now in the world that we're in, they're not interested in powerful leaders. They're interested in people who will empower them, inspire them to become better in who they are. So even with my clients, I call it conscious leadership when I go to businesses and speak to them. It's really about being conscious. But you can't be conscious about other people first. You have to know who you are. What is your intention? What is your leadership? And then people, what we want to do now is inspire people not to do more, but to become more. And that's what the world is looking for people who can help them become more. So I just wanted to add that on there. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Um, are there any questions that anybody has? Again, you have the Q&A if you don't want to come off mute. There's a Q&A chat box as well.
Hi, Dr. Walker. This is
Yep, go
this is
ahead.
London. This is the studio. We've got one question to read out to you from the Q&A, as you asked. Thank you very much to everybody who's using the Q&A. This is from Imburia Mutike, and he asks, how do you imagine, he asked the whole panel, how do you imagine your life or your child's life changing because of AI in the next 10 years? So how do you
Wow.
imagine your life or your child's life changing because of AI in the next 10 years? And that's from Imburia Mutike.
Thank you. Great question. Who is our futuristic panel member wants to jump on that?
This is an intriguing question to me as a mother of 6 children. My youngest one right now is 11. So I would imagine that she'll be living in a world where we have humanized machines so that they are assisting us and reminding us to be more kind, more empathetic, more compassionate with each other, and to tune in to being aware of your heart rate, right, and your thoughts and your mind and how it's controlling your way of being. Sadly, my 25-year-old who served in the military, she was in the U.S. Navy for 5 years. She already sees the downfall of humanity through AI. So I'm hoping that my younger one will inspire my older one to, and us, all of us old heads, right, to come back to our bodies and come back to our hearts and be human again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give the other 2 panel members an opportunity to answer the question, and then we'll be wrapping up. Go ahead, Simma.
Okay. I would say for me personally, I'm hoping AI keeps me alive for 10 more years and that I am able to do everything that I'm doing, keeping my brain intact, my body intact, help me stay connected. And for my son is kind of like where Cordelia is, AI is important and he uses it, but I know he also sometimes doesn't always have the most positive outlook about the workplace and the world. And I would like to see that change. And I think that change is also through connection. But we live right now, we live in a society where optimism and empathy are not, they're not really promoted. And I'm hoping that for my son, that AI and people technology can help change that outlook.
Yeah, Thank you so much. And Dr. Namita Rajput, did you have a
Yeah,
response for this?
what I say is that AI will not replace my humanity nor my children. It will redefine it. So, in the next 10 years, I see technology taking over the task so that we reclaim a time for truth, empathy, and purpose. And I want my children to grow up in a world where machines think fast, but humans feel deeply. That's what.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do have one other hand raised. So we have Dr. Wumi Adekunle. Did you have a comment or question? You're really choppy. Unfortunately, your audio is.
Maybe he could type the question in if we can't
Yeah,
hear him.
she can. Go ahead and maybe you can type your question or comment for us. No, yeah, it's still inaudible for us on your end. So we'll go ahead and go to Rohit Kaluri. Your hand is raised. You can come off mute there.
Yeah, go ahead, Rohit. You can unmute your mic from your end now.
Yeah, thank you, Adams. So my question is like, as you were speaking about artificial intelligence and the trend that going on these days in the market right now. Most of the institutions like Bloomberg and all of the institutions and are telling like AI bubble is coming up, just like we had 1926 market crash and .NET bubble in 2000. So that means like the market will crash very badly, like just like 2000 or 1920s. And what this bubble is like basically, so when the people and investors are spending too much on some technologies and it isn't performing as expected, like since if we coming to stocks like today 40% of SME stocks in the US market are just basically made up of AI and AI inventories. So if they aren't performing as expected, the bubble is gonna blast, and the institutions are expecting a market crash. So how do you define this? Like, what do you tell about this?
So is your question around how, AI is predicting possibly some kind of catastrophic, economic downfall, and what we can do about maybe like the bad news that it's predicting that may not be accurate? Is that what your question is?
Yeah. So my question is like, most of the institutions are expecting economic downfall because of AI. What do you tell about that?
Sure. I don't know if anyone wants to speak on that from the panel wise, and I guess just, that the AI models may be, predicting something that is, negative in some way, and what we can take from that.
Again, we feed the AI, right? So if we put our fears into it, it's going to spit it out and amplify it because it's based on water. So if we put our optimism in, no, it really is. If we put our optimism in there and infuse it with kindness and joy, then we will get that out.
Sure,
input. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Go ahead, Simma.
Oh, I was going to say it's an interesting question because on the one hand, there's AI predicting a downturn in the stock market. On the other hand, what about all these companies that are AI companies? So is AI predicting its own demise or its own shortcomings? And all I can say is I hope AI is wrong in this time. You know, I don't really want to have a big economic downturn. People have to eat. But it's
Yeah.
it's an interesting
Well,
question.
and I think that, you know, I know Dr. Adekunle was trying to come off mute and was having difficulties with the mic, but just I think that was like a little bit of her concern as well, just saying like the unwillingness of, you know, students or people in general to synthesize the information that AI is giving them maybe from a lot of different angles, and it can be like intellectually lazy, I suppose. I do want to check in just if our spotlight speaker is going to be ready, because I don't want to eat up too much of their time. But Dr. No Way, did you have a comment? You're muted, Doctor. Can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
Can you unmute him?
I'm not.
No,
Can you hear
that's,
me now?
Yes.
there we go.
Thank
We're all good.
Okay, I was trying to make a comment on Rohit's concern about AI, and I think you have to understand where he's coming from. He finished his masters in analytics, and he looks into all those things. So when he asked the question, I think he's looking at the demise being predicted by people, whether it's as a result of AI or the other side of the coin. And again, that debate goes back to Jefferson and Hamilton's debate during the founders as to what our economics is going to be. We live in an age where certain juggernauts control everything. They pretty much determine what goes on, that certain people don't have any say. So looking at AI from their projection is looking towards optimism, great. But looking at it on the other side, for those who are losing their jobs, it's not looking good. So I think that's where our eminent Rohit was coming from. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
thank
there's
you.
the other possibility that it could also be sparking a market, you know, like how sometimes they purposely make the market fearful so that people buy up a lot of stock, and then all of a sudden, you know what I mean? It
Right.
balloons.
Yeah, that's a good
So,
point. Yeah. To be
so there
aware of
could be
that.
that.
Yeah. Well, I do want to thank everybody on our first session here. Just amazing. I think you opened up a lot of people's minds and ideas and willingness to participate in AI ventures and just looking at themselves as a leader as well, and being able to tie that in. So again, if you want to reach out to these speakers, all of their information is in your registration packets. We are going to move towards our first spotlight session as we close this session. And as I transition, I do want to just point out to the Systemic Diversity and Inclusion Group's website. I'll go ahead and post that in our little chat here. Again, we are a 501c3, so we do work off of donations, and appreciate if you're able to do that for us. You know, as we bring all the collaborators together, we love to hear about the work you're doing. We love to showcase you and spotlight you in any way that we can. We just appreciate you continue to push our message forward as well. So you can find our donation link there. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our spotlight speaker, and that's Victor Ogunbuyi, and he's the founder and CEO of the Dawn AI Study, and works a lot with educators, parents, policymakers, trying to make learning more equitable for children with different cognitive differences. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Victor, and welcome.